There is a lot of anxiety. If I don't do AI right now, my business is going to fail. My family's going to go hungry because I went bankrupt. You got a business. You're providing value to customers. This is like a French 101. We're learning a new language here. Let's start teaching the language around this stuff. All right, Ellie, I'm excited to talk to you, founder of an agency called Unstuck, where she, for lack of a better term, is a fractional CTO, and then the founder of Yalla, which is a tech company. You are a multiple-time founder. You've had multiple tech companies. You started in theoretical cryptography, so you are technically a crypto billionaire.
Minus the billionaire, yes.
And I think the most interesting thing that you've done is over 40 0-to-1 product builds.
Yep.
In your career.
Yep.
So ton of tech experience, ton of knowledge. And what we're talking about today is very simple, very caveman stuff, like for me. I contacted you because I want to understand there's a lot of people right now who are like, oh, I got to get AI in my business. Oh, I got to implement, I got to integrate, blah, blah, blah. And they're like me and they're like, I don't even know where to start. Is AI IT? Is AI something different? And so this conversation is going to be for those founders and those owners who are trying to figure this out and even just build a vernacular and understanding of what exactly this is. The first part we're going to discuss is what's the difference between IT and real technical help, right? Like a CTO isn't a part of the IT team. Wait a second. I don't know what these words mean. The second part is going to be us talking about, okay, you're getting real technical help. What do you need to know in order to not be taken advantage of? And then the third part, I'm really curious to see your new company that you're spinning up called Yalla, where you're actually architecting softwares within companies. So that's the three-part arc to this. If you're a founder, you want to listen to this conversation, especially if you don't have a ton of tech experience. So here's my very, very first question. Ellie, what's the difference between IT and like a CTO?
Yes, great question. They are similar. They have a lot of overlapping pieces. And I think maybe one thing just to kind of calm everyone's nerves at the top of this, I know it feels like AI is moving really fast. And I know a lot of people are like, how do I bring it in? Oh my gosh. But I think even sort of speaking from someone deep in the tech world, I think what a lot of the folks, even on the front edge, are learning is that the value to the customer is still the top priority. So everyone listening to this, like you already have a story, you already have customers that are getting value from you. Don't blow that up just because AI. So
that's a great point, because there is a lot of anxiety. You're like, well, if I don't do AI right now, my business is going to fail, and then my family's going to go hungry because I went bankrupt. But to your point, you've got a business, yes. You're providing value to customers. That's the number one priority. Yeah. This conversation is just about walking them through like, okay, what's the language? This is like a French 101. Yeah. We're learning a new language here. Let's start teaching the language around this stuff.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so difference between IT and like CTO. Like how would I know the difference between an IT person, a CIO, and then a CTO? So let's start with the IT person. If you need an IT person, this might be like hooking stuff up in the office. Let me make sure that all of my systems talk together. Let me be sure that my customers can call me. Let me make sure that everything can operate very smoothly, but I don't need strategic help. When it turns to CIO, that's the same kind of operational side of the business, but now you need strategic help or strategic like partnership, right? You might be in a vertical where cybersecurity really matters, or you're handling, sensitive data. Just think about it as like the operating pieces of the business.
You're in healthcare and you need to protect patient information.
Yes.
CIO would be someone.
Totally, 100%.
And CIO would be Chief Informatics or Information Officer.
Yep, Chief Information Officer usually. Yep. And then CTO, Chief Technology Officer. This is usually when you have a software as a service company, or maybe you're e-commerce or fintech. Your company is software enabled. The value that you're providing is sometimes the software itself, if not just, software enabled in some major way. So you're building, there's custom builds there.
Yeah, I really like that definition. IT versus CIO versus CTO. I think many people that are listening own small businesses, and maybe they've got an IT department, quote unquote, and they usually call it like, oh, I've got the blue screen of death if you have a Windows computer, or, like typically that's IT to them. Mm-hmm. And then the only other real techie thing that they've ever done is they've built a website and they went and outsourced it, and maybe their cousin did it or whatever. And then maybe they're doing paid ads, but that doesn't feel techie. That feels like marketing. it just seems like tech is becoming more and more ingrained because now with AI, now it's like, okay, I built the website. Now I got to put AI agents in my business. Like it's bleeding into other things. Like, how do you kind of draw the line and delineation for a small business owner?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And a lot of times the marketing side of the business, like that website, can kind of morph into like, oh, now I'm a software enabled company because maybe it started just as, a website advertising your services and then turned into like, wait, to make the experience better for my customers, now I want a customer portal. Okay, now all of a sudden
Yeah.
the website needs a way for the customers to log in and maybe they can see the status of their order or whatever it is. Like
Right.
that's kind of turning into
Or
the custom
or
built
there's a lead
software.
form on my website and somebody fills out the lead form. Well, now the lead form has to go somewhere. So now I've got to get HubSpot so that I have a CRM that's tracking these leads. And all of a sudden I've got integrations and I'm like, is that a CTO or is that the IT department? You know what I mean? They're just kind of in this no man's land of trying to figure out what do they do?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good question too. I think a lot of this comes down to where your long term goal is on the tech enable side, right? Because if it's a lot of systems integrating together, but you don't necessarily need custom like glue between them or custom software to deliver the services, then maybe CIO is the right role, right? It's like, let me make sure everything hooks together. I have a strategic partner to make sure the data is protected. If it's genuinely like, okay, 5 years from now, I want my entire company to like be running as if it were an automation. And I want me and the knowledge in my head and my team to just be able to like plug into the software and do our work faster. That might be CTO territory, right? Like the entire kind of business is transforming and it will have a software component to delivering the services.
Interesting. In both of those scenarios, are those both tech enabled businesses?
That's another good question. Yeah. I think this is another like fuzzy term where people kind of throw it around without there necessarily being like a strict definition.
June 26th, 1 p.m. Eastern, you, me, live webinar with my friend Connor Gross, who I asked to come on and talk about all things franchises. We're going to talk about how much franchises really make, how to find the right one, what to avoid. It's totally free, but seats are limited because I'm trying to get it really intimate so you can ask as many questions as possible. I've gotten a ton of questions from you about franchises, so I thought, why not bring on an expert? I'll see you then. Link in bio. It feels like to me there are two types of businesses. There are tech companies, Google, Facebook. Those are tech companies. They have a software, that's their service. And then there are healthcare companies. Those are tech enabled businesses. Like they use technology, tech,
Yeah,
quote unquote, software bits to operate their business, but they're not tech companies. They are tech enabled. So, like in my mind, it feels like every business is tech enabled at this point.
100%.
To your point, though, like it sounds like the delineation between when I bring on a technical expert is when the service that I'm providing is actually something that software enables or delivers, as
Yeah.
opposed to it just being a part of my business. So healthcare might be I need a CIO because it's not tech that's delivering the product, but maybe I have a consulting agency and I'm going to build a chat bot or something. And in this way, customers can actually log in and have chats and get questions answered. That feels to me like, oh, there's now a component of the business that is tech, that's a
Yep.
service offering. I kind of need a CTO. Would that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great delineation. And I think it's kind of interesting because I'm seeing a shift in a lot of startups now where, like, I guess the jargon would be we probably all have heard SaaS, right? Like software as a service. Now you're starting to hear service as a software, right? Where it's like, it's like flipping the model, right? Like, we are all kind of the faces of our business because that human component's really important, and now how can I put software behind that to like maybe make myself more efficient, maybe make the experience better for the customer. So yeah, service as a software is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is very interesting. For many people who are running these businesses, there's also another term that I've thrown out already, but I like to talk about the tech stack. I feel like that started really in the techie community, but now everybody's sort of adopting it. What the frick is the tech stack?
This is every piece of technology that you use to piece together to either operate or run your software. So if engineers are talking about a tech stack, software engineers, they're talking about what languages they used, what frameworks they used, what services, what like APIs they're calling to. Companies as a whole, when they talk about their tech stack, they're talking about marketing tech, right? Like what products are they using to do their marketing? They're talking about CMS, like content management, kind of blogging stuff, or CRM. How am I, tracking all of my
Yeah.
customer interactions? Yeah.
So, like a typical tech stack might be QuickBooks Online, HubSpot, the Google Suite. Maybe that's where you handle all of your emails. Jobber, if you're a home services company that's actually going out quoting, invoicing, et cetera. Like it's
Yeah.
basically any piece of software that your company's using to run their business. Anything you're doing on
Yes.
the computer. Many times, I feel like businesses don't even manage it. Have you found anything that's good about, I don't know, tracking? Hey, this is how many softwares you're using. This is what you're using them for, other than your expenses at the end of the month.
No, no. And this was one of the features that I like specifically built into Yalla when I was building the first version of this, right? Because even if you sort of downscope and tunnel vision yourself to just the custom built software, there's still not a good way to see how much are all of these services costing me? What are all the
Yeah.
services that I'm talking to? Like there's just most companies that I work with are just tracking this in a spreadsheet, right? There's no beautiful way to do it.
Okay. So I'm a small business owner. Cool. I got it. I think I understand the IT portion of it. Anytime that I now need something technical, I'm reaching out. I feel like anytime I talk to somebody technical, let's say I wanted to build an automation or even a website, they could quote me whatever number they think of. And I'm going to be like, okay, that sounds good. And they're like, well, we're
Sounds
going to
good.
host it on this back end and we're going to do this. And that. Like, they might as well be speaking French. How do I even like get up to speed so that I don't feel like I'm being taken advantage of by developers or dev shops?
I guess if anyone takes anything away from this, I want them to know that like if anyone is making you feel dumb, like stop working with them. You can understand the concepts here and you should just keep asking why until they can give you something that makes sense, right? Like there's jargon in every industry. The really, really good technical folks that you're working with will be able to explain to you, here are the technical things I'm doing and here's why. And you should be able to understand that in the context of your business. So, like, just keep asking questions. If you don't understand it yet, ask more questions. You can ask, like, ChatGPT, right? The AI tools are really good with helping figure out the jargon. But I really would just encourage anyone, like, just keep asking questions. You don't just have to be
Well,
like, well, like, I guess I don't know because I'm not an engineer.
I'm good at asking questions because I don't mind looking like an idiot, but arm me with a tool belt. Like what are specific things I should be asking for? What's the bare minimum, I guess, I don't know, framework or ask, scope of work, whatever you want to call it, so that I feel confident in what's being provided to me?
That's a really good question. So I think before you approach these agencies, you should get really clear on what success would look like for you. And I think being on the other side as someone who is technical and does deliver on scopes like this, it's extra helpful if the person coming to me has also like, okay, I thought I was being specific, but actually let me try to be even more specific, right? Like think through all the edge cases. Have I thought of everything? What happens if this one weird edge case, you know, it happens, right? And then when they will provide you a proposal. The proposal will have a scope in it. It will have a price, maybe some information about how the project will run. And I would go through it with them and say, okay, when this bullet point on your scope says this, what does that mean to you? Because to me, it means this. And here's what the success metrics are, right? Like just really getting clear to make sure that everybody understands what all of the words mean, right?
Keep talking about that because you've built more than 40 0 to 1 products. First of all, define what does 0 to 1 mean?
Yeah, this is another like funny tech world jargon. A lot of people will say I'm a 0 to 1 like engineer or a 0 to 1 product manager. That just means before there was not a project, and then when you were done there was one. But it's usually not referring to the product that will take you. Often you'll hear people say 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100, and that's just kind of to delineate like this was the MVP, this is something that got us growth, and then this is the really big scale.
So 0 to 1 is the MVP.
0 to 1 is the MVP. 0 to 1 is we have this problem, not really sure how to solve it yet. Let's figure out what makes the most sense and let's get something working to kind of prove it.
That's usually articulated as the most difficult phase because you're going from idea to the first workable product, which is very similar to what we're talking about with business owners, right? It's like, I have an idea for what I want. I'm going to go contact a dev shop so they can create me that workable product. So I think your experience and skill set is uniquely suited to talk about this. And the place you started was basically start with the end in mind. Is that the way you did it with 0 to 1 products as well? As you're like, let's scope out where do we want to end up and work our way back?
Yeah, 100%. And it's a lot of times it's like, okay, what would my dream scenario be? What do I have to have for me to say yes, this thing works? And then when you're figuring out the solution, and this is another conversation you can have with the dev shop, when they tell you, oh, we're going to build it with these technologies, even if you don't know the technologies, say, why did you choose those? Because a lot of that, like science or art, maybe it's more of the art in that 0 to 1 is understanding, oh, if we pick this, these are the trade-offs we'll have long term, but these are the pros for right now. And it's kind of like that's why those people, the really good technical people that can sort of translate between you and the tech teams are really valuable, because you have to, as the business owner, you are responsible for making those trade-offs and saying, yep, I'm fine with that trade-off. Whatever that means for the tech team, go do it.
As I'm vetting these dev shops, are there like any broad categories that you're like, all right, here are the 5 categories you need to look for, or here are the 3, or maybe it's just 1 that you really need to make sure is spelled out when you're getting these proposals from development shops?
I really like to see dev shops that have proposals with the sort of operating procedures. Like here's what we will do on milestones. Here's what kind of week to week will look like. I think you should always get multiple quotes, because I think sometimes it's hard. You know, one dev shop might quote you double the other one. But if you have a range to choose from, that's really helpful.
Do I need to focus on architecture? Like, do I need to worry about, oh, this is what they're telling me they're building on top of? Boom, that's one pillar. Here are the milestones they're projecting. That's another pillar. Here are, I don't know, the tech stacks. I don't even know the terminology, right? Like I guess in my mind, I'm trying to think through, okay, these are the 5 checklist items. I don't know if you have those types of things, but anything that you could help me around that would be amazing.
So, okay, the proposal should always, of course, have like timeline and scope. You should make sure that the scope matches your expectations as well. Often, really good dev shops will also include kind of details in the scope that you didn't think of. For non-technical people, this is a lot of times like an admin portal, right? Like this isn't something we're thinking about as the outcome of the project, but oh yeah, I actually do need an admin portal, right? So looking for things where it's like, oh, I didn't think of that. That's good. The tech stack, if they have a high level architecture in there, that's always good too. The other thing that's really helpful, you should always ask the dev shops for examples of other projects that they've done. And when you're looking at them, like it's easy to pull up a website and say, oh, this looks good. But really think like, is this the same type of project that I'm asking them for, right? Because some dev shops will be really, really fast at like simple websites, but maybe you don't need a simple website. And so they might be really awesome at that, but maybe not a good fit for you. And then the last thing is asking for referrals. Like if they can pass you the name or a LinkedIn link, you know, someone that they've worked with before, just so you can kind of get a sense for what it's like to work with them, that's really helpful.
Yeah, I think the clarity piece is really interesting that you talked about, or just maybe sit down with your thoughts or maybe mess around with ChatGPT and like get really clear on what you want. Don't just say, oh, I want a website that gets contact information from potential customers. Okay, think through, what fields do you want? Do you just want their first name, last name, email? Do you want their first name, last name, email, phone number? Do you want their first name, last name, email, phone number, zip code? How expansive do you want it to be? Is it just a single landing page? When after they click through that, does it pop up to something else that leads them somewhere? Like just being kind of thinking through all of those steps.
Yeah, and your experience on the backside of it, right? Like once they submit, what do I want to happen with that data? What happens next, right? So just
Right.
trying to like think through, okay, this is my vision. Now what's every perspective I could look at this from to try to really, really, really get clear on what you want that end product to look like.
Hey, I don't know if you remember this, but when we started this podcast, we entered into a social contract. I would spend time, energy, and money producing this podcast, interviewing these individuals, and giving you insights into how to build, buy, start, grow your business. And you would like, subscribe, and leave me 5-star review. Now, out of that, we both get to talk to really cool people and hear really cool insights. We both get a ton of value. But I just want to help you keep your word. So would you do me a favor? Will you go leave a 5-star review for me on Apple or Spotify? It would really help. And if you want, even share this with a friend. I think the other thing that would be interesting to hear from your viewpoint is like, should you get multiple quotes?
Always.
You should
I
always.
think always. Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
It's just
Yeah.
hard. It's like, what do? I go to Google and I'm like, custom website developer. You know what I mean? Like, where do I even go to look? In your experience, where's been the best way of finding good people?
Honestly, referrals from inside my network.
Referrals.
Right? Like, folks that I know that have had projects done, like, hey, who did that for you? Did you have a good experience with them? Can I talk to them? That's been my best way. Because a lot of times, especially with these dev shops, probably so many of your listeners have horror stories with dev shops. I'm sure everyone does. But a lot of it comes down to communication and trust, right? And like, where do you find people that have good communication and high trust? Probably inside your network, right? So it kind of makes sense.
Well, and that kind of leads me to Yalla. When we met in person a month or so ago, I'm really deep into this vibe coding world. I don't do a ton of vibe coding, but it's been interesting to see. And what that means is now with natural language, dummies like me can go to a Replit, Lovable, even Cursor, although Cursor's more complicated, and just say, hey, I'm trying to build a website. These are the components that I want on it. And it will build it. And it's functional. And I can throw it up. And so people like me start thinking, well, cool, I just saved a bunch of money. I don't have to hire an outside developer. And they roll it out and it looks good for the first day or two. And then all of a sudden it starts breaking, or people start complaining because the links don't work, and then they've got to go and fix it. And if you go to try to fix it, it doesn't necessarily go and fix that one thing that you asked it to do. Sometimes it expands the scope and it fixes other things that you didn't even ask it to do that weren't actually broken. And so what you do is you get this Frankenstein of a website, and to the point where you're like, okay, now I got to get somebody professional in here to come fix it. And at that point, when you bring the professional in, you're paying the professional for two things. The first thing you're paying them for is to get educated on what you built, like what the freak is this thing. And the second thing you're paying them for then is expertise. And you want to just pay them for the expertise, but you can't pay them for the expertise until they get educated. Now, that is the same problem that many small business owners face historically when they built a website, is like, I don't like the developer that I had. I've got to bring somebody in. So let me bring in a new developer. They've still got to get educated and then they've got to fix it. But now it feels like that problem is it's expanding, because you've gotten all these people who are like, oh, I'll just vibe code my way to a product. What you explained to me was this term called technical debt. And that's when the light bulb went off of like, oh, holy crap, I didn't even realize that even in my small organization, this technical debt is really impacting me. So can you talk about what is technical debt and why is it actually a problem?
Yes. And I think while you were saying like, oh, here's all these weird things that happen when you vibe code with AI, you touched on it too, but I was thinking like, I bet if you had removed the word AI from that story, a bunch of people would actually resonate with that, with their horror stories from these dev shops that they've hired, right? Which is why I mentioned it comes down to communication and trust. And I will just share quickly, and then I'll jump back to technical debt. The framework that I like to use for communication with dev teams, you've got to set the expectations up front, and specifically like do a kickoff meeting with them. The goal of the kickoff meeting is I want everybody to know everybody's first names, right? Like we need to have a little bit of a personal relationship and rapport here. Second, I want the whole team to have context. They should understand why we're here. Why are we building this? Why do we care about this? And third, I want the whole team to know where we're going. How will we know that we've got to where we're going? What does success look like? That's kind of kickoff meeting. Thing number 2 is weekly check-ins. The check-in should just be, what did I do last week? What are the priorities for this week? What goals do we have for this week? And then talk through any questions. So no matter how clear you get on your scope up front, there will always be questions. That's okay. That's expected. Let's have a regular time to tackle them. And then pillar 3 is just ongoing communication. So a Slack channel or WhatsApp chat or something where you guys can talk ongoing as things are coming up. It doesn't have to wait for the meeting. There should be an ongoing place where everyone can see priorities and see progress. So like source of truth, here are the priorities, here's how far we are on them. So those are kind of the 3, like, communicate really well with dev teams, do those 3 things.
That's funny because it's like, that's not unique to tech. That should just be the communication style for any project. But yeah, kickoff meeting so that everybody meets everybody. That's great. Yeah. That's actually really great advice, especially for outside vendors who don't know your team. An established weekly cadence for checking in, and then a place where everybody can go. and say, this is where we are relative to the goals that we set.
Yep. Yep. And it's funny because that's actually a good segue into some of the technical debt, because some of these same principles about like sharing context and kind of having these regular check-ins and success metrics apply to AI tools and vibe coding and stuff too. So it's kind of funny, but we made a trade-off decision at one point, and now we're at the point where the trade-off decision is causing a little bit of drag in some way. So every piece of software 100% always has technical debt. There's no such thing as projects without it. It's totally okay. Software comes with trade-offs, but it's just like as that stuff starts to build up, you might find yourself doing more workarounds in your day-to-day operations, or things are breaking a little bit more often and you don't know why. That just means like the tech debt is building up, and sometimes that happens if you're just building features and features and features and you're not really sure, like, wait, we should actually go back and redo this thing because our process has changed a little bit and we're just putting band-aids on instead of fixing how the software works to match the new process.
It's almost like the sludge in an engine.
Yes,
It just
100%.
like builds up.
It
builds
just
up over time.
Yeah, and you can do something about it. You just have to like actively go do something about it, right?
I didn't realize that when you're vibe coding, that tech debt just builds up. Like you don't go back and clean it up. It's making fixes to the already broken process. Whereas if you had taken the time to actually just go fix it at the source, then the code would have been a lot cleaner. It'll run faster. There'll be less errors, et cetera. So a lot of times, like you were saying, when you come in to look at an organization and how they're operating or how their software is built, like tech debt is kind of the first major hurdle that you have to get over before you can even get into fixing, quote unquote, everything.
That's one of the reasons too that context sharing is so key. Like whether you're vibe coding, working with AI, working with a dev shop, like if the whole team doesn't understand the why behind something, then they're going to make technical decisions that maybe have trade-offs that are worse for your outcome, right? Like there's not necessarily one perfect way to build software. Everything comes with a trade-off. You just need to be picking the trade-offs that match with your business context, right?
Well, when I say tech debt, I always think like, oh, that sounds like a Silicon Valley company, but tech debt isn't unique to just a tech company, right? I mean, it's kind of all over the place.
It's all over the place. It's all over the place. Yeah. Like sometimes when different systems are integrating together, there can be tech debt because maybe there was some workaround with how you made the integration because you needed it to work fast. And so it's like maybe sending double the data that it needs to send, which is fine because maybe we got it running today. But next year, when we have 100 times the number of customers, sending double the amount of information is going to be really slow, right? It's things like that.
So you've been working as a fractional CTO effectively, but you also developed, I mean, you started multiple companies, but you've developed this new product called Yalla, which effectively just maps out your current technical infrastructure. Is there a word for that? Is there a word for like that document?
Yeah, teams will sometimes call it the technical design document, sometimes like the architecture document. But the idea is like a lot of times your tech stack feels really opaque. The software feels opaque. This is what you were mentioning too about like you hire a dev and you want to pay them for their expertise, but actually the first week or 2 weeks or whatever, it's not even their expertise that you're paying them for. No. It's them figuring out what on earth is going on, in there. So this is a problem that I've seen at every single company that I've worked with. And I just kind of started tinkering in the background of, working with my clients. Like, can I solve this, right? Like, can I get this information visible in a way that makes sense to people so that they don't waste all this time kind of going down rabbit holes or being confused? Like, you don't want to feel confused.
I'm very visual. So I would love to see, because you actually like map it out, right?
Yeah. I can share my screen. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to.
So,
all right. So this is the Yalla dashboard. Yalla spelled Gyalla. Is that right?
Gjalla. So this
I'm so stupid.
is
I'm so sorry.
No, you're not. I promise you. It's actually funny. Yeah, it's a long story, but the name, my like reason for being is that I'm super passionate about non-technical people not feeling like they're at some disadvantage for not knowing how to code, right? And I really love all of my clients because I get to kind of partner with them and make them feel really confident that they understand their tech enough to go run their business, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like a bridge. And so I was like, okay, I need a name that like harkens to bridge somehow. And in Norse mythology, the Yallar horn is like held at the bridge between two realms. And so I was like, oh, that's pretty good. I can call it Yalla.
Yalla. I feel like it's
Yalla.
like, hey, Yalla.
Yalla. Yeah, and it's
I
like a
like
little
it.
fun, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun. It's fun. All right.
It's
So
fun.
this is the
It's
Yalla
fun.
dashboard we're looking at. Tell me
Yes,
what
this
I'm
is
looking at.
Yalla. So this is actually a public link. So if you go to yalla.io/demo/medplum, spelled MEDPLUM, Medplum is an open source project. So this is just basically a big piece of software that's like free for anyone to use. It's a starter project for companies building software that needs to be HIPAA compliant. So the idea is
Oh,
like it like provides some tooling to get developers started. So you can start from this code and then build on top of it however you need. But this is what Yalla does. So you just load in a code base and it basically draws it. So on the
I'm
right side
so
here,
sorry. I'm so sorry.
yeah.
I know a code base is a thing. I know how to get a code
Yeah.
base. I know how to do it. But how would someone who's really dumb and stupid, how would they get their code base?
No one is dumb and stupid, first of all. Most code bases are stored on GitHub. So if your dev
Okay.
shop sent you the GitHub link or whatever, or they were like, hey, I need you to create an account on GitHub, that's where they're storing all of their
They
code. So
should have
think of it,
stored they should have stored it on GitHub.
it should be on GitHub. Think of
Okay.
it like it's like Google Drive, but for code. That's basically what it is. Everyone just keeps their code on
Okay.
GitHub.
Theoretically,
Engineers,
you had a dev shop
yeah.
and you just came in and you don't have any link to GitHub. What would you do then?
I guess like the other way you could do it into Yalla anyways, if you have a zip file of all of the code, like I would imagine, I guess if we back up to earlier, you were asking how can founders and business owners protect themselves when they work with dev shops. And one of the other things that I recommend is that you own all of your accounts. And what I mean by that is instead of the dev shop putting all of the code into their GitHub, you should go create a
Mm,
GitHub account and have them put it in your GitHub account, right?
okay.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
they should be okay with this because any of the services that have usage cost or something would be on your account, so they don't have to incur that cost if, you know, I don't know, something logistically weird happens. But then you also own all of your accounts, like whether or not you have the nice handoff documentation from them, you at least have control of all of the logins and accounts and stuff that you need
No,
to
that
run
makes
your
a ton of
software.
sense, right? Because then it's like I don't need to go back and ask my developer who I had a really bad experience with for the zip
Yep.
file. Just do it up front. Hey,
Yep.
I'm going to make a GitHub account or whatever.
Yep.
We're going to store it there. Okay, cool.
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
keep going. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so you have your code, you load it into Yalla. What Yalla does is it goes through and on the right side here, you can see it's identified everything in the tech stack. So this is like what a software engineer means by a tech stack. So these are languages, TypeScript, Node as a framework, Docker, that's like a way to deploy stuff. If you scroll down a little, it will show you any external dependencies that you have. So if there are external dependencies in here, these might be things that you would also need accounts for. So Google Cloud, you might have an account that you own on there, but it basically maps out the entire code base and just kind of shows you at a really high level what are the different components in this code. So this one in particular has a server component.
Okay.
And it tells you it's got like a little description there. It's got an agent. It's talking to external healthcare systems. There's like healthcare clinicians, developers. So, the people who downloaded MedPlum and wanted to build on top of it, databases, right? It has all of these pieces. And then if you want to know more about the system, you can actually kind of increase the level of technical information that you're showing. So this just like zoomed into each of these components. Now you can see the server has a bunch of components inside the server. So what makes up the server? Oh, it has the repository and the
Jeez Louise.
authentication service. So just like if you're kind of trying to figure out what on earth, how does my system work? This will just draw it all out for you, and you can kind of look at whatever layer of depth you want, right? You don't have to be
Is there
thrown
any
all of
way that
the
it
jargon.
like maps out the flow of data or I don't know. Is there like are there any
Yeah,
arrows? I'm
let
an
me show
arrow
you.
person.
I am also an arrow person. Okay, let's do the bot automation. So this one just shows this is how the data moves for bot automation. You can do user authentication. This one, so that one makes sense too. The user authentication
Okay.
flow, you're seeing that data goes between the authentication provider, the cache server, and the web app. Yeah, so you can kind of just see how the different key workflows in the product will move data.
Oh, what is this?
So this one maps out the data entities you can think about it as. So in this
Hmm.
particular system, there's like a practitioner, there is an encounter. It's like how the different data is modeled in the system. And you can actually see if you go open the documentation panel again, it will show you, yeah, here we go. So you can look at like, oh, an encounter has these various attributes. There's a participant, there's a subject, a class, a status. So if you're kind of trying to think about like, I want to build this new automation, do I have the right data in my system to do it? You could go into Yalla and see like, okay, exactly what data do I have in my system? Do I, am I saving the attributes that I need?
Yalla would be more geared towards somebody technical, correct?
Yeah, it definitely like it requires custom code. So right now it doesn't work on operations infrastructure, I guess I would say. Like if your tech stack is like HubSpot and QuickBooks, like Yalla doesn't map that kind of thing out, but if you have
Okay.
custom code, it will map that out.
Basically, if I'm hiring a dev shop, they would be the ones using Yalla on
Yeah.
their end, right? I'm not necessarily using Yalla as a business owner.
Right. Yeah, and this is when I'm doing projects and giving handoff documentation, Yalla is basically exactly what I give to my clients, right? Like, here's the architecture, here's the tech stack, here's the data model, here, like the infrastructure. Like, you need to communicate to them everything that they would need to either operate it themselves or hire another dev shop. So dev shops can kind of use that as handoff documentation. Yeah, like you don't necessarily need to understand all of the details in here, but it's good to just orient new
Now,
engineers.
did you use AI to build this?
Yeah.
How?
The first iteration that I did in Replit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the backend processing now is a little bit more complex, but a lot of the front end stuff I did in Replit. And then once I kind of was like hitting the limits of what Replit could reliably do, especially for the like backend processing stuff. So I pulled
Hmm.
it out of Replit and kept building. But
So
the
I'm sorry,
other,
dumb question. What do you mean
yeah.
back end processes stuff?
So one of the things that Yalla does is like it's called cloning in the technical world, but that just means it copies the code base, runs a bunch of analysis so that it can draw all of this stuff, and then it like deletes the code base. I don't store any of that stuff, but that's the piece that like I wanted a little
Okay.
bit more control over that because that's like the core thing that I want to work really well.
Okay.
But B, Replit and some of these other tools are really, really good at the front end stuff, but not, I don't know, like the back end stuff
Well,
is more,
can I give an
yeah,
example? So
yeah,
I was building this app that I wanted to create for my kids and my
yeah,
wife, where it basically it's like the Haluski task tracker was the name of it. And
yeah,
so we could go in and assign tasks because it's summer, the kids are home, they need to know what
yeah,
chores they have. And then the kids can mark it complete or they can leave notes. But in order for me to create it, I did this in Lovable. I had to set up a Supabase account
yep,
that was effectively hosting all of those tasks, right? Because
yep,
effectively Replit and Lovable is the UI, but the
yes.
back end, like the guts of it, need to be stored somewhere else. So I was using Supabase. Is that what you're talking about when you say the back end of Yalla?
Kind of. Usually there's three main pieces. So what you just talked about were two of them. There's the front end piece and then the database, which is Supabase. Some applications have a third layer, which is like if there's any additional processing that needs to happen between the front end and the database, that would happen in the back end.
So let's say that I wanted a layer of AI to
Yep.
process in between. I built a wrapper and it's an advice application. So I ask it a question and then does an API call to OpenAI and then responds back. Would that API call effectively be what you're talking about? This like third
Yep.
processing? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Jeez Louise. I'm so smart.
I mean, those are the three main components in like most software systems. You've got the front end where the people use it, you've got the database where stuff is stored, and then like if there's any extra processing stuff, that's just the back end. That's the main gist.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So where can people find Yalla right now?
The website is yalla.io, but you
Okay.
can also follow me on LinkedIn. I'm posting about it. I'm on Twitter also. Ellie in Tech is my handle on Twitter. And I love hearing from folks, and especially hearing people's experience. I know I've seen a lot of my clients, and just everyone seems to be having a lot of fun playing with Replit and stuff, but having a little bit of a hard time turning these apps into something that's like production ready. So
Yeah.
like it's interesting for me to hear more about those use cases and see if that's something I can help with too.
Cool. This was awesome. Ellie, appreciate you. Thank you for all your insights.
I appreciate you, Nick. Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
All right. Hopefully you liked that episode. And if you've made it this far, you're either really committed or you're stuck doing yard work and you can't actually skip on your phone. So while I have you, the show is growing, but I have a favor to ask of you. Will you please help me grow the show? I want to reach more people. There's a couple things that you can do. Like and subscribe is the simplest thing. Obviously, you want to get notifications for when the next episode is coming out. But if you go the next step, will you leave me a review? 5-star on Spotify or Apple. What that does is it tells the algorithm that, oh, hey, this is a high value podcast because more people are leaving reviews for it, and it then pushes it out to more people. So that's why when people are like, will you like and subscribe and put a 5-star rating? It's not just to make themselves feel better. It's actually to get more exposure for the show. So if you do that for me, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.